Picture this. You're lying next to someone you care about. Their arm is draped across your chest. You can feel their breath on your shoulder. And instead of comfort, you feel something else entirely. Panic. A desperate urge to get up, leave the room, create distance. But here's the contradiction that makes no sense to you. When they're gone, you miss them terribly. You check your phone obsessively. You wonder if they still care. You want them close again. This isn't just commitment issues. This isn't being hot and cold for no reason. This is something psychologists call fearful-avoidant attachment. And if you recognize yourself in this pattern, you need to understand something. You're not broken. You're adapted. And that adaptation has a story. Let's start with Emma's case. Emma is 28, intelligent, with a successful career in graphic design. On the surface, she has it together. But her relationships tell a different story. Every relationship follows the same pattern: intense connection, growing closeness, then sudden withdrawal. Her last partner described it as whiplash. One week Emma was planning future trips together. The next week she needed space. Then she missed him desperately when he pulled back. When Emma finally sought therapy, she asked the question that defines fearful attachment. Why do I want closeness so badly but panic when I actually get it? The answer lies in what's called the fearful-avoidant attachment style, sometimes called disorganized attachment. It was first identified by developmental psychologist Mary Main in the 1980s. Here's what makes it unique. People with fearful attachment have two competing internal systems. One system screams for connection, the other screams for distance. And these systems are constantly at war. This isn't a choice. It's not about wanting to hurt people or being unable to commit. It's a survival mechanism that developed in childhood, usually in response to caregivers who were both the source of comfort and the source of fear. Think about what that does to a developing brain. The child's nervous system is trying to solve an impossible equation. The person who's supposed to make me feel safe is also the person who makes me feel afraid. There's no coherent strategy that works. Seeking closeness leads to danger. Avoiding closeness leads to abandonment. The child learns that both proximity and distance are threatening. Emma's childhood perfectly illustrates this dynamic. Her father was an alcoholic. When sober, he was affectionate, engaged, the parent she desperately wanted. When drunk, which was unpredictable, he was rageful. She never knew which version she'd encounter. Her mother, overwhelmed and depressed, alternated between emotional neediness and complete withdrawal. What Emma learned was this: people who love you can hurt you. Closeness is dangerous, but distance is unbearable. So she developed a pattern of oscillating between the two, never feeling safe in either position. Now let's look at Marcus's experience. Marcus is 35, works in finance, and describes himself as someone who sabotages good things. His pattern is slightly different, but rooted in the same core wound. Marcus pursues connection intensely at first. He's the one sending good morning texts, planning elaborate dates, talking about the future. But the moment his partner reciprocates at the same level, something shifts. He starts noticing their flaws. He feels suffocated by their presence. He picks fights over small things. He creates distance through criticism and withdrawal. Then, when his partner starts to pull away in response, Marcus panics. He apologizes profusely. He promises to change. The cycle begins again. Marcus's childhood involved a mother with borderline personality disorder. She would shower him with affection and attention one day, then ignore him or rage at him the next. Her love felt consuming when present and terrifyingly absent when withdrawn. What Marcus internalized was that intimacy equals loss of self. When someone gets too close, he feels like he's disappearing. But when they're not close enough, he feels like he's dying. This is the central paradox of fearful attachment. The nervous system has learned that both connection and disconnection are threats to survival. The neuroscience behind this is fascinating and tragic. Research by Alan Shaw and others shows that early experiences with inconsistent or frightening caregivers literally shape the developing brain's threat detection systems. The amygdala, which processes fear and threat, becomes hyperactive. The prefrontal cortex, which helps regulate emotions and make sense of social situations, shows decreased connectivity with emotional centers. What this means in practice: people with fearful attachment experience relationships as genuinely dangerous. Their nervous system isn't overreacting. It's responding based on what it learned was true. Intimacy can hurt you. Distance can destroy you. There is no safe position. Let's examine another case. Sophia is 42, a therapist herself, which shows that intellectual understanding doesn't automatically resolve attachment wounds. Sophia knows her patterns. She can explain them eloquently to clients. But when she's in a relationship, that knowledge doesn't prevent the panic that rises when someone gets too close. Sophia describes it as a physical sensation. When her partner expresses deep feelings for her, when they want to spend more time together, when the relationship moves toward genuine intimacy, her body reacts before her mind can intervene. Heart racing, chest tightening, an overwhelming urge to flee. She feels trapped even though no one is trapping her. Her childhood featured a father who sexually abused her, while also being her primary source of affection and attention. This created the most extreme version of the fearful attachment dilemma. The person who should provide safety was also the source of violation. Her nervous system learned that love and danger are intertwined. They're the same thing. For Sophia, and others with similar histories, intimate relationships trigger genuine trauma responses. The closer someone gets emotionally, the more her body remembers that closeness meant harm. This isn't metaphorical. It's a somatic, nervous system level response that happens beneath conscious awareness. One of the cruelest aspects of fearful attachment is how it affects the person experiencing it. Unlike someone with an avoidant attachment style who might genuinely prefer distance, or someone with an anxious style who can relax once reassured, people with fearful attachment find no comfortable position. Getting close is terrifying. Being distant is agonizing. They're caught in what psychologists call an approach-avoidance conflict with no resolution. Let's talk about David's experience. David is 50, divorced twice, currently in a relationship that he describes as probably doomed because of me. What's interesting about David's case is his awareness. He knows he pushes people away. He knows he creates crises when things are going well. He knows the distance he creates causes him more pain than the closeness he fears. But knowing doesn't stop the pattern. David grew up with a severely depressed mother who made suicide attempts throughout his childhood. She would threaten to kill herself if he didn't stay close, then rage at him for being needy when he sought comfort. His father left when David was young. The message was clear: depending on people will destroy them, or they'll destroy you. Either way, connection equals catastrophe. Now, as an adult, David experiences any deepening of intimacy as a suffocating obligation. His partner's love feels like a demand he can't meet. Her needs feel like a tax. Her presence feels overwhelming. But when she suggests taking a break, when she shows signs of pulling away, David experiences panic attacks. His thoughts become obsessive. He can't sleep. He imagines her leaving and feels like he's dying. This is fearful attachment in its most painful form, simultaneously experiencing the same person as both salvation and threat. The concept of earned secure attachment becomes crucial here. Research by Mary Main and others shows that while early attachment patterns are powerful, they're not permanent. People can develop security through later relationships, through therapy, through making sense of their own stories. But the path is different than for other attachment styles. Someone with anxious attachment might heal by learning they're worthy of consistent love. Someone with avoidant attachment might heal by learning vulnerability doesn't equal weakness. But someone with fearful attachment needs something more complex. They need to learn that their fear makes sense, that it protected them once, and that they can now distinguish between past danger and present safety. Consider Jennifer's journey. Jennifer is 39 now, in a stable relationship for the first time in her life. But getting here required years of intensive work. Jennifer grew up in a home where her stepfather was physically abusive to her mother. She witnessed violence regularly. Her mother, trapped in her own trauma, would oscillate between clinging to Jennifer for emotional support and lashing out at her in rage. Jennifer learned that people who claim to love each other hurt each other. That's just what love looks like. As an adult, she found herself drawn to partners who recreated this dynamic. The combination of passion and chaos felt like love because it felt familiar. Calm, consistent partners felt boring, untrustworthy, like something was wrong. Her healing began when she started to recognize her body's responses as information rather than truth. When she felt panic during moments of intimacy, Instead of immediately creating distance, she learned to pause, to notice the sensation, to remind herself, this feeling is from the past. This person in front of me hasn't hurt me. My fear is real, but it's not necessarily accurate right now. This process isn't quick. It's not linear. Jennifer still has moments where her old patterns activate, but she's developed what therapists call a metacognitive awareness. She can observe her fear without immediately acting on it. She can communicate to her partner, I'm feeling scared right now. It's not because of you. I need to sit with this feeling instead of running from it. The role of the nervous system in all of this cannot be overstated. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory helps us understand why fearful attachment is so physically overwhelming. The theory describes 3 neural pathways that respond to safety and threat. People with secure attachment can move flexibly between these states. But people with fearful attachment often get stuck in what Porges calls immobilization with fear, or rapidly oscillate between hyperarousal and shutdown. When someone with fearful attachment experiences intimacy, their ventral vagal system, which should signal safety and connection, may instead trigger dorsal vagal shutdown or sympathetic activation. The body literally cannot rest in connection. It perceives closeness as a threat to survival. This isn't psychological, it's physiological. The nervous system is responding to learned danger. Let's examine one more case before we move toward solutions. Robert is 24, in his first serious relationship. He's younger than our other examples, but his pattern is already established. Robert grew up in foster care, moving between homes, never staying anywhere long enough to form secure attachments. The few times he did start to connect with a foster parent, he was moved again. His developing brain learned something devastating. Attachment equals loss. Getting close to someone means they'll disappear. Now with his partner Anna, Robert finds himself creating the very abandonment he fears. When she plans future events together, he makes excuses. When she talks about meeting his friends, he changes the subject. When she tells him she loves him, he feels a wall go up inside. He's protecting himself from the loss he knows is coming. Except the loss isn't inevitable, he's creating it. This is perhaps the most tragic aspect of fearful attachment. It becomes self-fulfilling. The strategies that once protected you from harm now create the very abandonment and rejection you fear. You push people away before they can leave you. You sabotage intimacy before it can hurt you. You prove to yourself, over and over, that connection isn't safe. So what does healing look like? Let's return to our cases and see what helped. Emma, who oscillated between desperate closeness and panicked withdrawal, found help through something called EMDR therapy, combined with attachment-focused work. She needed to process the traumatic memories of her father's unpredictable rages, while also building new neural pathways around safety. The key breakthrough came when she recognized that her current partner's consistency was actually triggering because it was unfamiliar. Her nervous system trusted chaos more than stability because chaos was what she knew. Emma learned to practice what therapists call titrated closeness. Instead of swinging between extremes, she practiced small doses of intimacy with built-in breaks. She'd plan a weekend together, but include solo time for both of them. She'd share vulnerable feelings, but in structured conversations rather than in moments of high intensity. She was retraining her nervous system to tolerate safety. Marcus, who pursued then pushed away, worked with a therapist who helped him understand his mother's borderline patterns and how he'd internalized them. The turning point came when he recognized that his fear of losing himself in relationships was actually a fear of losing his mother's approval. He'd learned that his own needs made him unlovable. Asserting boundaries meant abandonment. Marcus practiced something counterintuitive. He started setting small boundaries early in relationships instead of waiting until he felt suffocated. He'd say things like, I'd love to see you this weekend, and I also need Saturday morning for my run and coffee alone. He discovered that clear boundaries actually reduced his anxiety rather than creating the rejection he feared. Sophia, the therapist with the most severe early trauma, needed body-based trauma therapy. Her healing wasn't primarily cognitive. She worked with somatic experiencing, learning to track her body's responses and gradually expand her window of tolerance for intimacy. She practiced being present with physical sensations of fear without immediately creating distance. Over time, her nervous system began to learn that closeness doesn't always equal danger. David, who created crises when things were good, worked on what therapists call mentalizing, the ability to understand his own and others' mental states. He learned to recognize that when his partner expressed needs, she wasn't making demands or threatening to leave. She was actually trying to deepen connection. His interpretation of her behavior was filtered through his childhood experience of his mother's needs as life or death crises. Jennifer learned to distinguish between intensity and intimacy. She'd been drawn to volatile relationships because they felt like love. Real intimacy, the quiet, consistent, safe kind, felt foreign and frightening. She practiced staying in moments of calm connection without creating drama to make them feel more familiar. She learned that boredom might actually be safety. Robert, the youngest of our cases, benefited from a partner who understood attachment and could provide what's called earned security. Anna learned not to take his distancing personally. She maintained consistent, non-demanding presence. She didn't chase him when he withdrew, but she didn't disappear either. She remained available without being intrusive. Over time, Robert's nervous system began to learn that she wasn't going anywhere. Attachment didn't equal loss anymore. There are some common threads in all these healing journeys. First, they all required recognizing that their fear was information about the past, not necessarily accurate data about the present. The fear was real. The threat was historical. Second, they needed to develop what's called dual awareness, the ability to feel the fear while also knowing intellectually that they're safe. This isn't about dismissing the fear. It's about adding context to it. Third, healing required practice in small doses. You can't go from fearful attachment to secure attachment in one leap. You need repeated experiences of closeness that don't end in harm. You need distance that doesn't end in abandonment. You're essentially providing your nervous system with new data. Fourth, many needed to grieve. Grieve the childhood they didn't have. Grieve the safety they deserved but didn't receive. Grieve the relationships they've lost because of these patterns. That grief is part of healing, not separate from it. Here's what you need to understand if you recognize yourself in these patterns. Fearful attachment developed because you needed it. The contradictory messages you received required a contradictory response. Your nervous system did exactly what it was supposed to do. It tried to keep you safe in an environment where both closeness and distance were dangerous. But what protected you then may be limiting you now. The people in your life now aren't the people who hurt you then. Your adult relationships don't have to replicate your childhood dynamics. That doesn't mean the fear will disappear immediately. It means you can learn to respond to it differently. You're not too damaged for secure attachment. You're not too broken for lasting love. You're adapted to survive chaos, and now you're learning to survive safety. That's harder than it sounds. Safety can feel more threatening than danger when danger is what you know. The fact that you want closeness despite your fear means something important. It means the part of you that craves connection hasn't been destroyed. It's still there, underneath the defenses. That's not weakness. That's resilience. Your work isn't to eliminate the fear. It's to build something alongside it. To create enough safety, slowly and carefully, that your nervous system can begin to relax. To find people who can hold steady while you oscillate, until the oscillations become smaller and less frequent. You didn't choose this adaptation, but you can choose what you do with it now. Not through force, not through willpower. Through patience, through practice, through understanding why you are the way you are. Because once you understand the why, the what to do next becomes clearer. The door to secure attachment isn't locked. It's just been closed for so long you forgot it could open. And opening it doesn't mean the fear goes away. It means you've learned that fear doesn't have to be the only voice you listen to.